How has cultural sexual consent evolved historically? Imagine a time when decisions about sex and marriage were made not by individuals but by families, tribes, or community leaders. That's how it was in many ancient societies, where consent was often seen as a social contract rather than a personal choice. In those days, a young person's readiness for marriage or sexual activity was linked to physical signs of puberty or social status, not necessarily their own desires or understanding. Consent was tied to property rights, family alliances, and social stability, not mutual agreement or personal autonomy. Fast forward to medieval Europe, where laws and religious teachings recognized consent at surprisingly young ages. Children as young as 7 could be considered capable of giving consent to marriage, especially when puberty was reached. But here, consent was more about fulfilling social and religious duties than about personal choice. Marriage was often viewed as a social contract that protected property and family interests, with little regard for individual feelings or desires. As societies modernized, especially from the 19th century onward, laws started to change. Governments began setting minimum ages for sexual activity to protect children and vulnerable groups. For example, in England, the age of consent was set at 16 in 1885, marking a shift toward protecting minors from exploitation. These laws reflected growing awareness that children and young people needed safeguarding, and that their rights to personal safety and bodily integrity mattered. The 20th century brought even more change. The sexual revolution of the 1960s and 1970s challenged traditional norms, emphasizing open communication, mutual respect, and enthusiastic consent in sexual relationships. People began to see consent as a clear, informed, and voluntary agreement. Laws also expanded to consider mental capacity and coercion, recognizing that true consent requires understanding and free will. This shift was driven by changing gender roles, the fight for individual rights, and better scientific understanding of sexuality and coercion. Today, the idea of consent is rooted in respecting personal boundaries and promoting healthy communication. It's about ensuring that both partners are fully informed, enthusiastic, and willing participants in any sexual activity. This approach supports not only personal autonomy but also public health goals, including preventing sexually transmitted diseases and promoting sexual health through honest conversations and mutual respect. Looking back, the history of sexual consent shows a move from collective control and social contracts to individual rights and open dialogue. Early societies focused on social stability and family interests, often restricting women's autonomy. Over time, laws and cultural attitudes shifted toward recognizing personal choice and the importance of clear, respectful communication. This evolution helps create safer, healthier sexual relationships today, where consent is fundamental to both individual well-being and public health efforts to prevent disease and promote safe practices. Remember, understanding and respecting consent is key to healthy sexuality, and always seek advice from healthcare professionals for personalized guidance.